It is a dark day in the entertainment industry. Iconic multi-platinum recording artist Tupac Shakur was shot in Las Vegas. The rapper was shot inside of a BMW while stopped at a red light at the intersection of Cobalt and Flamingo Boulevards. For their part, Vegas police have not identified a suspect in the shooting.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin McMahill. I'm the sheriff of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. For 27 years, the family of Tupac Shakur has been waiting for justice. We are here today to announce the arrest of 60-year-old Dwayne Keith Davis, aka Keefy D, for the murder of Tupac Shakur.
If there's no gun, no witnesses, no car, where's the case? I mean, I've been around a lot of mob guys in New York City, and they walk away from stuff a lot less powerful than that. But you've got to have at least those three things, and they had none of those.
And they were not allowed to record interviews. And so we were honoring that for Jeff, the FBI guy with us, because he said he can't sit in if they're being interviewed unless he goes and gets special approval, and we weren't going to wait around for that. His decision to surreptitiously record that interview is everything. Like, I can't even tell you, like, I could never have done the book or any of these things. We wouldn't be here where we are today, honestly, I don't think, if he hadn't secretly recorded that entire interview.
I think the recording that I've listened to, where Greg Cady just starts doing all the talking, that's not how a proffer session works on the federal side.
The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And the search warrant for the resident. You can come out with your hands up.
In reading this transcript, once Detective Long leaves the room, they're completely leading Keefy on what to say and to stick to the story and not let Keefy speak freely. And instead, they're putting words in his mouth to say, this is what you need to state during this interview. If you stick to this story, you'll sleep well. If you don't stick to this story, you're not going to sleep well, and we're going to potentially cause problems for you, which is complete police coercion, which is crazy. It's not acceptable, obviously. It's hard to be believed, but I'm reading it, so yeah.
We were in the cab and we heard, something happened and people been shot. I was like, oh no, I'm like, pull over, I'm like calling gas. I'm like, is everything okay? And she calls, says, no, go to the hospital. And I also remember seeing, Suge roll by in the gurney with a little Band-Aid on his head. And I was like, what happened? What happened? Is he like fighting? Why are you wearing a big sweater and he's wearing a t-shirt? I mean, it's like, why? You just ask these questions and you look at those pictures, that last photograph of him, the deer in the headlights photo, and he just looks sad, and it's just sad. And you think I think about the times that we were supposed to go to Vegas, like a few times. And I think to myself, God, obviously, was set for it to happen there, somehow or another.
Tupac Shakur was more than a rap or a hip-hop musician. He was a poet, teacher, activist, movie star, and yes, a great lyricist. Even today, countless acts in hip-hop try to imitate his style. The Guinness Book of World Records recognizes him as the best-selling hip-hop artist, with over 75 million albums sold worldwide. Something else important concerning Tupac was the way he died. He was shot to death in Las Vegas, September 6, 1996. His death remains one of the most notorious unsolved murders of the last 20 years. In 10 years, a new team of investigators has been named for the investigation. But did the Vegas police get their man, and why is it this suspect after this many years? There's little to no physical evidence to mount a prosecution, so what do the Vegas police know that the public does not? Let's go back and find out.
Frank, why you showing up? Make a nigga like this feel bad.
James, what's up, man?
I feel you, homie. Hey, I hope you Chinese if you got the Chinese tattoos on you. Chinese? You don't know what the is wrong with you, huh? That shit can say 2 egg rolls on you right now. That shit, you got, hey, get that. Ask somebody Chinese if you watching this tape, don't just say 2 egg rolls to go with hot sauce. Is that what this say? Niggas ain't Chinese, get Chinese letters like they been somewhere and shit. You ain't never left the block, nigga. Act like you with the China guy.
Bond be clowning everybody, man.
Oh, how I want to be free, but freedom is miles away.
One of his publicists, Karen Lee, when he was locked up, had even talked to him about going to Yale Drama School because his potential was for acting was so strong.
I met Pac through Shock G, and we just hit it off. He recognized me immediately, right off the bat, told me I'm an actor too. I said, yeah, you are, actually. And everybody started laughing, and that's how we hit it off.
He was very charismatic. The camera loved him completely.
He was almost like a James Dean type person. He had some danger about him. You could sense it. And I remember Burt Reynolds told me once, he called me a movie star. And I said, thank you. He said, don't say thank you. Asked me why I said that. So I asked him. And he said, you have the ability to be dangerous. He said, movie stars are dangerous. He said, and he named some actors who were really hot on TV at the time, and he said, they're not movie stars, they're television actors. He said, but you're a movie star because you have the ability to be dangerous.
The ideas that he had would have definitely been done. He would have acted in them. They would have been funny, completely funny, happy, you know.
Tupac really, really loved acting.
He kind of reminds me of Don King. It's like when I met Don King, there's one public persona, and then behind closed doors, Don King is just baritone, very much like this. But then when the doors open and people are around, it's like, hey, my brother, my black brother. So he go into that thing. But Tupac had a thing he would do. He just wore his armor differently outdoors, but he could relax when he was like behind closed doors with his boys. And he was a lot of fun, man.
Rapping was just natural for him. Writing was natural for him. Expressing himself through that was natural for him. But that wasn't the end of it for him.
What you find in this business is that so many of the people who are rappers and gangster rappers, they're not. I mean, you know, people like Tupac, they went to private schools. You know, Biggie Smalls, they were not uneducated street guys. They were like smart young black guys who kind of thought the street life was something to be celebrated.
Death Row, he was smart enough to see that Interscope wasn't gonna get him out. They was playing that he need to cool us game. He need to get himself together game. He need to detox from weed game. They was playing that silly game. You can stay there for 2 years when they come out here and be calm.
He had signed with Death Row, and shortly after signing with Death Row, he became very unhappy with the agreement that he made. But that's something that invariably happens with artists. Artists get mesmerized when they see dollar signs and checks and people saying that they're going to do things for you that hadn't been done before. And since Suge Knight was making all these moves and Tupac didn't want to be in prison anymore, he wanted to be out recording music and doing shows and all that, he went ahead and made a deal with the devil. shouldn't have done it.
I come from a prison town, so I understand the position that Tupac was in, because a lot of my family members were in the same position. You'll do anything to get out of prison.
But you know what? I just can't wait. I can't wait to make you draw.
Oh yeah, more than anything, I want them to see how
That wasn't his plan. It wasn't gonna be, he wasn't gonna be wedded to no death row. Death row was confined. When you think about him and his spirit and how he was, even if you didn't know it then, it was confined, and not because for no particular reason. Not because Suge was anything or not. You know what I mean? But he had to run his, he had to be in charge. He had that thing where he wanted to control. He was a capitalist.
I wanted to roll in it like I rolled in the rap, and like a mushroom touch everything.
Right.
It was just going. There was one time we went to Catalina. We took a little boat over to Catalina, and we were talking about ideas over there. It was me, him, one of the directors, James, and Patty, and Mo Preem was there, and we were just going over ideas. You know, someone goes and records in Reading or someplace far, you just go so that you aren't bothered by your cares, and you just start thinking about stuff that you want to do.
Do that right now. We can touch everything with the beat.
I'm talking
the producing, the soundtrack, the hour, everything is
yeah.
done. We can do it cheap, we can do it good, we can be efficient, we can do it.
An actor, when we go on the road, we always take a suit because you may meet mayors, dignitaries, and so on and so forth. So you always have a suit in your bag. There's a certain thing that you carry with you when you're an actor. You don't get too tattooed up, because even though makeup can cover it, if they can't, people receive you differently. People that want you to market their products and so on and so forth, let them decorate you. You know what I'm saying? So I used to talk to him all the time about the actor's journey and keeping all your opportunities as wide open as possible. You know, you can rock the earrings, you can do all that stuff, but if you're doing a Western or something way back period, then you got the earring hole, that's gonna work somebody hard trying to keep that thing sealed so people can't tell what it is. So I used to talk to him about actor's journey, how you keep yourself a clean canvas, all the fire and brimstone and all the powers on the inside, but you keep the outside clean. And so we used to talk about that all the time. Actor's journey, Pac.
He was bigger than death row. His ideas was bigger than that, because he wanted to go further than that, and he wasn't dragging a Suge behind.
He definitely understood that gangsters are like presidents, like Barack Obama's a gangster, because he just has stuff done. He didn't get his hands dirty, right? And the thugs are out there in the street doing the crime, you know? And so first he was all about that gangster life. And then I remember when he showed me his tattoo, Thug Life, I was like, oh, man, what you doing, man? He's like, nah, sometimes, like, you know, you just gotta get a little dirt on you, man. Yeah, you just gotta get a little dirt on you. So I was like, all right, boy. Don't worry about it. It's all good. I'm praying for you, man.
Yeah, because he had this label called Out the Gutter. And he was going to piggyback Funk House with it. And, you know, in fact, when he went to Death Row, after the fact, me, my dad, you know, Funk House, Tupac's manager at the time, H.M. Gregory, and Shock G, we had a deal on the table with Interscope. We were gonna put all our resources together and put it out.
I know Pac was really excited about being able to step out on he was making everything Machiavellian at that point. You know, it wasn't just this album, it was everything, you know.
No. This is my story. I love this. I'm not thinking of nothing that I don't want to be involved in. I don't want to sell my ideas. I don't want to play my part. I want to watch him grow.
Because see, there was already a squabble as to whether his obligation had been met with the 3 album deal. And he felt like he had met it. And from what I understood was Suge felt like, man, I only got 2 albums out of you now. And he said, no, man, I did All Eyes on Me. That's a double CD. And then here's Machiavelli. So, and I know the original thing was the 3 because I actually had, in my contracts, I had copy and paperwork of the contract they did. You know, the one they wrote out with their hand. You know, that was in my contracts. So he considered it complete.
One of the reasons he put out Machiavelli because he was about to start his own label, Machiavelli.
Yeah, I remember Pac was going to start his own record label, Machiavelli Records, and I don't know if it was going to be distributed through Death Row Records or he was going to do it on his own, but it was a label that he was working on, and we was going to Outlaws, we was going to sign with that label, Machiavelli Records.
Which is the 3rd record, and I no longer owe you anything. I'm no longer under your restraint or constraints, you know what I'm saying? This is, okay, I borrowed 3 from you. Here is 2. I owe you 1 more, and this is it. I'm out.
Many people I spoke to about Tupac said he was out. 3 albums. Now, whether or not you agree that the double CD All Eyes on Me constitutes 2 of those 3 albums, it's immaterial. It all harkens back to that handwritten contract Tupac did while he was in jail. And over 15 years of research into Tupac and Death Row Records, I've never seen an official contract, only the handwritten one.
You know, the contract that was done with Tupac was effective from a Death Row perspective in terms of getting 3 albums from Tupac. It probably, if you were to talk to maybe business affairs people at Universal, they probably wish it had been written differently so they would have gotten more records and more ownership and stuff. But I think the agreement served its purpose.
Yeah, it was before because when he came back, that's when he got shot. So it was before he went to New York.
He knew gangsters, what they would perceive as gangsters, tougher guys than a Suge. He just didn't know gangsters, those gang people.
A lot of people don't realize it's a 92% failure rate in this business. Only 8%, that's less than 1 in 10 that will make it. And so the majority of the artists are a tax write-off. But when you look at how the financing works in business, they're just bodies that are processing and moving money through. Is it really art and entertainment, or is it just capitalism?
If they want you with the label, they want you for whatever reason, because of your fame. And if you don't want to be there, that's going to be an issue.
My biggest takeaway from Death Row Records was chaos. You have rumors of artist beatdowns, different jealousies, gang politics. And the common consensus was it was all over not being paid properly, over money.
Chaos. A lot of chaos there, a lot of confusion. There were good days at Death Row and there were bad days at Death Row. It just depends on when you worked.
Oh, he definitely, yeah, he's done. He was done. He was done. He was done. There were meetings with attorneys, Yaz and I, yeah, he was done. He was done. He had fulfilled his obligation with Death Row and no intentions of renewing any sort of paper agreement.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff since Tupac's death that indicated that he did not intend to stay. Some of the people who were involved with him recording, because all these albums and stuff that were recorded, you know, he was well aware he had a 3-album obligation to Death Row. He did not intend to deliver more product to Death Row. And he had made that, I think, clear to Afeni and other people who work with him. So he was recording with the idea that he was going to release that on his own or through another label.
I went to George Price's office, and Tupac, he had a conference call with Tupac. He had him on speaker so I could hear what was being said. And he was letting Tupac know what his schedule was going to be for some interviews and things like that. And Tupac was very vocal, said he wasn't going to do these interviews, he wasn't going to cooperate, and he didn't want to be with Death Row. Now, I was here to hear this all. I said, oh my God, I don't know if this man's going to be around too much longer, because if he's going to be this confrontational, and if this is really how he feels after money has been invested in him, there's going to be a real problem.
But now when he leaves, the question is how he's going to leave. He's either going to leave quietly, it's all going to be good, Sugar's going to be cool with it. If Sugar's not cool with it, it's going to be a problem, because he's going. He's going to leave. It doesn't matter whether it's quietly or a problem. And I know Tupac is going to make it a problem if that person try to hold him once he fulfills his obligation.
So when Tupac was talking to George Price and I was sitting there with the speakerphone on, I knew his days were probably numbered. I was really uncomfortable with that whole conversation.
So the interesting thing about Death Row Records is you had artists, you had people being recruited from the streets. They'd go in, lay a verse, and expected to be paid that day. They had no sense of publishing, no sense of royalties. They were basically acting as a work for hire.
Most record labels back then, very welcoming, no security or anything. You just have a nice young receptionist at the front desk, and they'd usher you through, and you'd see all the gold records hanging up on the walls, and everybody would wave to you, and the person that had you there would say, oh, this is Cynthia Horner, and Right On Magazine, whatever. And then everyone's waving. This was like being in a fortress. Like I said, there were different doors that you had to get through, and it was like a lot of bureaucracy. It was almost like, I've never been to a prison before, but it's kind of seemed like that to me. But it was really scary. I didn't enjoy being there at all.
The rap business or industry is more toxic than the streets and politics together.
You also had people claim that they weren't being paid properly. You have Daz, you have Corrupt. You even had Dr. Dre and Snoop leaving the label.
No, Dre didn't like that at all, and so he actually ended up separating himself from Death. He wouldn't go to the office, he wouldn't go to the studio, he wouldn't make records. He didn't want to be around that element.
When Dre left, all the money got cut off. When Dre left, yeah, that's everything, just no money. So I always wonder where all that money is. I just found out from media, he said he never got paid a penny for that Machiavelli. Either did I. Nobody got paid. That thing sold 50 million albums or something like that.
Man, that's 3 albums. No, that's 3. And Suge looked at it, no, that's 3 projects. That ain't, that's just 2 projects, man. That ain't 3 albums.
So Tupac was pretty unhappy at Death Row.
At a certain point, yes.
Towards the end of his life?
I'll say, yeah, towards the end of the Machiavelli thing, and I'm going to tell you why I think he was unhappy. Because during the making of Machiavelli, he called the office, Death Row. And these were some of the words, not word for word, that came out of his mouth. He said Snoop was corny. He was taking too much time doing a record. He'd take all day doing one song. He says, I'm paying Nate Dogg child support, okay? And at that point, that's when I knew, oh, wow, this guy is not happy.
So recoupment is a non-issue with respect to whether or not he could go and put out his records himself. And given the success he had had with selling records, I think there'd be people lined up to make a record deal with him for him to put out records on his own. So Yeah, so I would not agree that he would not be able to put out his own product.
We were getting very close to wrapping on Gridlock. We probably had maybe a week or two left on it. And myself and Kevin Hackey, we were both on duty that day on the set. And it was in the evening time because it was already night. And I got this phone call from Yasmin Fula. And she said, "Hey, Frank, I'm coming down to Gridlock. Don't you and Kevin leave because I need to talk to the two of you."
Tupac wouldn't move for nobody he didn't want to move for. Believe me. Either Tupac was with you or he was not. Either he liked it you or he didn't. Frank, he was a diamond in the rough. I mean, Tupac loved Frank and Frank loved Tupac.
So, you know, probably 30 minutes later, she shows up and she goes, "Hey," she goes, "there's some things going on over at the death row office. Pac has called an audit on the death row office."
Who did you always fear? Who did the streets always protect, and who do you always fear? The streets always protect the accountant, and you don't want the accountant to tell anything. So the mentality of an audit means you think you're gonna get the truth.
You know, I talked to Frank. Frank was very knowledgeable, very, you know, he understood the whole record business. Like, you know, I need to get Tupac to the studio so Tupac can make the record get turned in, Tupac make money, and I can ask for more money.
Now, this was the first time I had ever heard anything about an audit, obviously, because she came down to tell us this story about, you know, the audit going on. And her main thing was that she wanted us to pay, like, a little bit more closer attention to Pac, watch him a little bit closer.
I think Frank Niece came in there and Pac sat with her for an hour and a half, talking, ordered food.
She wasn't sure of the repercussions of this audit that was going to be going on because apparently Pac was pretty hot over it.
He should have been auditing his statements and then challenging anything on the statements that were not his.
Okay. And she basically said, you know, you guys need to step up your game, watch him. We're shaking some things up right now.
Frank was everything. I mean, you needed Tupac, everybody knew, go to Frank if you want to get Tupac to do something.
And because we had already heard on the phone, driving around in LA, a call, Tupac is at death row, pissed off. He wants his That was in June.
I got a call from Al Gittins. I was at home, I lived in Orange County. And Al Gittins says to me, "Hey, you need to get to the studio because Pac is trying to, you know, take masters out of the studio."
He who owns the masters do whatever he want, when he want. I can put out a record, I don't need nobody's opinion, nobody's right, because I own the what? Masters. He who owns the masters choose, picks, when, what, how. So the masters is a big play.
And Suge has told us that no one is to take masters from the studio anymore.
And they are important to a record company too.
So apparently there had been a problem, and this was again the first time I heard about no one can take masters or anything that they've recorded out of the studio.
And you've probably seen the writing where it says, this is deemed to be a work for hire within meaning of the copyright law. The reason you have that in there is unless you have that kind of statement, anything that people create, they own, even if somebody else pays for it. Unless there's an agreement in writing to the contrary.
If you own your masters, you own everything.
But Al Gittins was the manager for Right Way Security. And he called me specifically knowing that I was Pac's bodyguard, saying, "Hey, you need to get down here. You need to talk to him. You need to calm him down. He's cussing, he's going off, he's going crazy."
If there's anybody that could have made Pac stop, it was Frank.
If he was there, it was confrontational if he was going to get whatever he was going to get. If he was asking for his masters or asking for the paper that he signed.
And I said, "Look here, man, what do you want me to do? You want me to get in my car and drive to Tarzana from, you know, Orange County and get there in time to stop Tupac from taking his masters? I don't think so.
Hey, yo, Frankie. Frankie! Yo, Frankie!
What are you trying to say?
Oh, well, back then, because we only kept one set back then. Because remember, back then we were actually dealing with reels or DAT tapes.
He did those 3 albums. It didn't take him long.
Oh, when will an artist see money again? From their record sales? Never. 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 They're always going to stay in the hole.
The chances of Tupac recouping his money and leaving Death Row Records was very slim. They kept him in a cycle of debt. It reminds me of the miners' towns, where people would go to the general store and spend their debits to buy goods at an elevated price.
That's to keep him signed to you.
If the record company's controlling the numbers, then the record company's controlling the artist.
Because his contract was just for 3 records. So when he delivered the 3 records, whether he was recouped or not, he's free to go.
I just recently had an artist within the last 30 days say to me, I was out of my deal in 2013. I said, no, you weren't. They said, yes, I was. I said, no, you weren't. You weren't recouped till 2019, and I just got you your release letter.
They didn't spend that much money. I've seen people spend a lot. Remember, MC Hammer sold millions of records and went bankrupt. The world is full of people who made millions and millions of dollars and went bankrupt. You can spend it.
So that's the completion of that obligation as I know it. And I tell you, he had movie scripts and he was truly interested in that. People were talking to him about it.
Yeah, I knew what an audit was, but it wasn't per se what type of audit that was going to be performed on a record label.
You know, things that I heard from the horse's mouth, how they do things. And he was like, I'm Tupac. You know, the IRS took my car. I went the same day and bought another car cash. And I was like, okay, I understand, but this is the way they do business. It's not going to benefit you.
Because every Friday, the runner from Death Row office would bring $5,000 in cash and give it to me to give to Tupac later on that day. And Pac would, every Friday, would tell me, Frank, call the office and have Rory bring me, 5.
And then, we found out 20 years later that that's exactly what happened. They were holding on to his money. They were putting things that he was supposed to own. They were putting it in other people's names and keeping it away from him.
Yeah, he was making millions of dollars, but $5,000 out of $1 million is not much. That's not even a fraction of a percent.
He was bigger than life, but the process of the money rolling in had not. It was being leveraged. It was being leveraged by the sales and funded by UMG. Because that's 9 times out of 10, that's how it happens. When you see the lifestyle, somebody's got to pay for it.
You haven't seen the way people spend money. Just go buy yourself a plane. You'll be broke in a year.
It just was going to be ugly.
I remember when Reggie Wright Jr. said Tupac was, his words, never gonna leave Death Row. I always took it to mean Tupac was happy to stay there, but now it has a totally different meaning.
In music news, multi-platinum recording artist rapper Tupac Shakur has single-handedly ignited a bi-coastal war with the release of his controversial track, Hit 'Em Up. In this profanity-laced diss track, Shakur takes on not only his former friend and fellow rapper Christopher Biggie Smalls Wallace, but the entire East Coast rap scene in what many are already calling the greatest diss track of all time. For his part, Shakur claims to have been the victim of this East Coast rivalry when he was shot in New York in November of 1994.
I was worried when I started hearing about the song because of the fact that I realized that once you put these words out there, you can't take them back. And you can't even explain yourself, because if somebody perceives your lyrics a certain way, even if you say, I didn't mean it, it's just a song, that's not the way the other person is going to feel about it. because at one point, Tupac and Biggie actually got along. They got along pretty well.
Hit him up. I was happy for him because I knew that it was going to serve him, but I also thought it was dangerous for him too.
But as the rivalry brewed, the rivalry just started spilling out in different factions.
He was injured, you know? He was injured, and that was very painful to watch him vulnerable like that. And because he trusted the people.
In fact, Biggie's wife, Faith Evans, was accused of being involved with Tupac.
This raps have been here from the beginning, but this was like no other. Even if you take Ice Cube's No Vaseline, you know, his diss to NWA, I mean, which was, you know, definitely one of the best, hardest diss records ever, but just the personal attacks. I mean, he's saying, I slept with your wife.
And some of that actually started because she had come out to California and she had taken a picture with him.
I mean, so rappers say a lot of things in songs, and it's just a cut at you. You don't know if it's necessarily true or not.
Now, everybody's got camera phones. People are always taking photos with somebody, whether they know them or not, and it doesn't really mean anything. It was just a photo.
So that prompted us doing like a whole issue, an East Coast, West Coast rivalry issue. And one thing that was very important for me to have in that issue was a survey. So we prepared a survey. It was like 3 questions that we presented to artists, and we asked them to respond. Like, do you feel like there is really an East Coast, West Coast rivalry? And what do you feel are the contributing factors? It was like three questions.
But back then, you didn't have social media. So if you had a photo, there was no way to really explain it. The photo existed and that was it.
And many of them, you know, almost unanimously, they're like, that's just the media hoopla. They're like, I'm from the East Coast, I love West Coast artists.
He didn't think a black person would shoot him, would hurt him, forget shoot, would hurt him. He didn't believe that.
I walked away from hip hop because I thought a lot of the kids were just out of control and hadn't been taught a certain moral code. Like I used to talk to Pac about. He had too much of a moral code to hang out with some of the dudes he started hanging out with.
Oh no, man, Suge was a buster. You know, he's not anybody to be afraid of. But his desire to be in that kind of street life, you know, he put out in the streets, anybody gets out of prison, come to death row, I'll give you a job. So he began to surround himself with some people who really were serious criminals.
And I would always tell him about that. Ice-T would tell him too. It's like, yeah, what they have, you have a moral code these other dudes don't have. And you can't expect, you call them punks and sellouts and all that stuff, that's who they are, man. That's what we're trying to tell you. That's why you need to just switch up and take the actor's journey. You know what I mean? Get that music, get that stack, but actor's journey is where it's at.
Oh, that was the one I didn't like. I didn't like it because I'm like, it's just not nice. And regardless of the truth of it or not, it's like, treat people the way you want to be treated, not the way they're treating you. And, you know, we definitely had words about that.
He was around in New York. He wasn't around all the time. Earlier he was around because him and Pop wrote words and stuff together, I imagine.
We hit him up. I don't know, I remember doing that video. I mean, I liked the beat. It was great to dance to, but I did not like, you know, I'm more of a peaceful human being. I prefer, even if someone does something bad to me, I don't really want to talk bad about it.
Biggie came to the hospital. Biggie stayed at the hospital that night. Biggie retrieved one of the weapons to give to the cousin, whatever, that was left there.
I remember when he got in the incident where he was shot multiple times in New York, and I heard about it, how cold chills went through me. Right around the same time that the incident happened, something weird, I just felt weird. And when I was finally able to talk to Pac, thank God he survived, he came out to LA and we hid him out at another actor's house. I remember one time telling him the only time he probably got at me, where I could visually see he was, right? But he was really too little to do anything. You know what I'm saying? I was like, dude, I said to him, I said, I forgot how I phrased it, but it had to do with other people treating him like he's their pit bull.
Biggie was there that night as shocked as anybody else in terms of what you're looking at. He was at the hospital. When they brought Tupac in, when we got to the hospital, Biggie was at the hospital.
And he got, man. But I was like, look, man, you can't have these dudes got you on records and sicken you on other people and they stacking checks. You know what I mean? Come on, man. Pop. Stop being this dude's pit bull. And but I remember he got really irritated with me about that. You know what I mean? Because he stopped talking a little bit. He just was kind of like, and he, you know, let me know he didn't appreciate it, but he also knew my heart and that my heart was set after him.
I only know what I know from, what I know is that night when he got shot, Biggie was at the hospital. And he was not at the hospital gloating.
I think one of the strangest things I've ever seen was in New York when Tupac had left New York, came to California, and we went back. We got into a confrontation at the park with a couple other artists. There was some pushing, there was some shoving, there was some name calling, and I don't think we really left on good terms. I knew going back to New York would be trouble for us if we ventured back there in the future.
But I was around him a lot, and when a lot of the hood dudes would come around and they would start getting crazy, I would get out of there, man, because I've spent enough money on lawyers.
I was there when an argument took place between Tupac and Mr. Knight. I was in the limo, me and Tupac, Outlaw Immortals. We were driving around in Harlem, and the radio came on with Snoop Dogg saying that he had no beef with New York.
Biggie Smalls, he's an artist that I listen to his music. I love what he do, you know what I'm saying? And it's just me. I'm just a smooth, peaceful individual. I don't have beef with nobody right now, baby.
Which sent Pac into a rage, because Pac, of course, had big beef with New York. That set Tupac off, and we immediately spun the limo around, and we went back to the hotel to confront Snoop. We couldn't find him, but we found Mr. Knight, and Pac's words were, I'm gonna cut out Machiavelli, and when I cut out Machiavelli, I'm the hell up out of here. You got your money, I don't want nothing else to do with Death Row, I'm out. And this is the first time I've ever heard of Machiavelli before it even came out to be a CD record, that he's gonna give Suge all the rights to Machiavelli, he just wants his freedom, and he wants off Death Row.
And Suge didn't want to hear that.
And Mr. Knight was very upset, and they got to yelling at each other back and forth. They confronted each other basically to a face-to-face. I did slide in between them and said, hey, you know, you can't do this while I'm here, or I am gonna have to step out of the room.
What happened was he signed his deal, and then he started realizing that Death Row wasn't what he thought Death Row was. He ran into some trouble because he did have that cocky attitude, and that was Suge Knight's company. So Suge Knight was not going to let Tupac control the narrative at his company.
Normally, I am asked in every situation that I can remember while working with Death Row, where there was altercations, fights, where some type of discipline was going to be passed out during Death Row, I'm usually asked to step outside the room. But on this occasion, I think Mr. Knight had me stay for the safety of Tupac. I mean, that's the reason I was there, because I think Mr. Knight, with me not being there, he would have put his hands on him. He was that upset.
Especially with somebody like a Suge Knight, who was extremely dictatorial. You know, he wasn't the kind of person that you could just go up to and say, look, I'm sorry, I don't want to be with your label anymore. It didn't work that way.
Tupac said, hey, and I'm out of here. This was in New York after the MTV Music Awards. Prior to us going home, there was an altercation about what Snoop had done over the radio while we were in the limo.
What did you tell me he told you? I know you and I had a conversation. You told me that Pac felt like he was
right. What it was is that I think at the time after we did the
MTV
Awards, I think after we did the MTV Awards, you know, I don't know what went down, but he wasn't too happy about it, and he didn't care about going anywhere. You know, so he didn't feel like he didn't want to go to Vegas. I don't even think he wanted to do the video.
The last thing he said to me prior to leaving was, he's not going to be in Vegas. I don't have to worry about him showing up, and don't worry about it because he won't be there. That's what he told me right before we put him on the plane.
Suge didn't let none of my security ride with me. I had to ride on the plane with him, his homies, and Pac. And it was the most uncomfortable ride I ever had in my life because my say nothing to me the whole ride. And that's a 5-hour flight.
Because he had told us that he was not going there with, his words, them sellout.
Because I feel like they finna try to do something to me. So when I get off the plane, we land, he walked down the steps, I walk down the steps. We meet right here. I'm like, cuz, you going to Vegas? He do me like this.
On September the 6th, Tupac was back from New York. They were shooting the video, Toss It Up.
My name is Chris Herzog. I'm the owner and sole proprietor of the Bodyguard Group of Beverly Hills. And I would like to say for the record that the only reason that we've never had a client injured, robbed, never been sued by a client, never had a client have a burglary, home invasion, nothing. I repeatedly begged Tupac. I said, please, Tupac, this is a B-7 armored vehicle. It can stop armor-piercing AK-47 rounds on full auto, point blank. It's the highest level you can get. Listen to me. Ignore the people telling you not to do this like Suge Knight and all the other people that he had said to me, keep telling him, you don't need that, you don't need that, it's too expensive.
Reggie made a mistake prior to that happening. I brought it to his attention that he needed to have additional bodyguards while we were in New York, simply because of what had happened prior.
He let the stupidest people he knew make his decision. What, are you gonna put one in every city you're going to? Yeah, because at one point he had the money. So I said to him, they're wrong, and what they're doing is gonna get you killed. And he said, I ain't growing old anyway. And I said, don't you wanna be alive for your mother and for the people you love?
I would always try to correct him when he would say that he probably was gonna die young. And I'd go, man, why you put that negative stuff out there like that? Stop doing that, man. He was like, nah, I'm just, no, you're right. I'll keep it high. I'll keep the science high.
And his girlfriend was standing next to him, was arguing with him, listen to Chris, listen to him.
He was very sensitive. When I say very sensitive, that's what made him a brilliant actor. That's what made him a brilliant artist, because he saw everything.
Tupac drops Hit 'Em Up, and already his list of enemies is compounding. You already have Congress, police officers, and now Tupac decides to take on the whole East Coast.
On September the 6th, when I arrived in Las Vegas, I found out that September 7th, or the next day, that we were going to have a security meeting around noon at this attorney's office. This attorney that we met at his office in Las Vegas, never before had we had a meeting at an attorney's office or with an attorney even present in any of our security, meetings. Never.
Why did he go to that meeting? Who was that guy? You see what I'm saying? Now, I looked on the door, and you know how the doors that has listed people that work in that door?
His name wasn't on it.
His name ain't on there.
I looked too.
His name ain't on there. I always do that.
That's where I looked too. Especially after he had to be a car.
That's right. I made it a point, Frank.
Because he didn't even know where his cars were.
No.
And that's supposed to be his office.
That was his office. And he was lost.
Yeah.
He didn't even know where the pens were at.
I don't know who the attorney was. He was no one that none of us had ever seen before. This happened on September the 7th of 1996, first time out of character.
We were told specifically, do not carry your weapon. That's what we were told.
And that's the first time we've been in Vegas where somebody said we have a gun. That's right. And then they were really persistent about you not having one. You see what I'm saying? They're going to be checking you. And then they was even trying to convince people in CCW not to carry.
You have to ask yourself, why would people make this up in a conversation between themselves? I'm pretty sure that Michael didn't even know he was being recorded, and Frank was doing this for his own safety. The whole thing is very telling.
Now, we've been to Vegas about 5 times, Frank. Look, have you ever heard him say, don't carry your weapon? Absolutely not.
I've written 3 books. I've done a documentary. I've appeared in a few other documentaries. In 2007, right after our first assassination movie came out, Reggie contacted allhiphop.com and told them that he never told the bodyguards not to carry weapons. He said something stupid like it was only for people working at the club. He also said specifically, I'd never say that to a bodyguard. Now, we would have debriefings and things like that just to let us know, hey, this is what things are going to be like, ABC, XYZ. Nothing like on September 7th, around noon or so.
Well, this is supposed to be his office we're in. Now, here's another thing. Did you notice the pictures? Yeah. They weren't him, Frank. Yeah. They weren't him. And you know what I'm thinking? I don't think that guy was a lawyer. That office wasn't his.
I've been to Club 662 on many of occasions, and never have they told me to leave my weapons, either in my room or my car. So I questioned them. Why would I leave my weapons in a vehicle or in the hotel room, and I'm personally guarding Pac in one of the most hottest places to be?
I'm telling you. Something is not right.